everyone. Happy Wednesday. So we are going to do a fun conspiracy type post. This was on TikTok and I did like a part one, which was called the Vatican Archives. And what I uncovered was crazy, like anything but a conspiracy. This is all stuff you can look up. It's been proven, it's factual, it's out there, and it's going to blow your mind. So this rabbit hole, it runs really deep. So I'll just give an overview today and then, everyone can let us know if they like it and they want us to dive like further into it on a future episode. But these findings led me to believe, Tara, that the Vatican is intertwined with the global elites and maybe even their leader. I don't know. So let's dive into what I found. All right. So for anyone that doesn't know, I'm just going to give like a super brief history lesson on the Vatican because it's kind of important to what we're going to talk about. So the Vatican is not part of Rome or Italy, despite being located inside of Rome. Vatican City is actually a sovereign country recognized by international law, and it's under full ownership and jurisdiction of the Holy See or Pope. The Vatican, it's been around since early Christianity, and popes actually functioned as governors, ruling most of the Italian peninsula for over 1,000 years, up until 1870, when Rome itself was taken over by Italian forces. And then the Pope went to live in the Vatican and was actually at the time considered a prisoner of the Vatican. So since the Pope has lost secular power, they now, rule on like spiritual issues, which I think we all know. But I didn't realize until I was looking into this that the popes refused to recognize the king or leave the Vatican until 1929. Like, that's crazy. That's like not that long ago, right? And during World War II, even when Germany occupied Rome, no one messed with the Vatican. They were like untouchable. And it remained very neutral, just like Switzerland. So more on that in a minute because it all ties together. So here's like the part one that I did on TikTok that was crazy. Underneath the Vatican, there is more than 53 miles of shelving containing all the documents that the church has obtained throughout the centuries. And so it's underground in like this doomsday type bunker that is fireproof and could basically survive an apocalyptic event. And there's two sections. There's the Vatican Library, which is open to certain scholars. And then there's the secret archives, which only the Pope can see. And then it's passed down to his successor. Tara, like imagine 53 miles of shelving, how much hidden knowledge and secrets there are that we just can't even fathom. It's just insane to think about. And I was thinking, like, even the Bible only has a small, tiny fraction of that knowledge in it compared to like all of the different things they have in this archive, including a ton of stuff, books and books and books on things that we can't even translate. There's no language that we know of and no one that can translate these findings. So it's just insane to think about what is down in this 53 miles.
Yeah, I was reading that the Vatican archives contain millions of documents going back like 12 centuries, and the oldest is from 809 CE, which is crazy. And just their selective catalog alone has over 35,000 documents. And like you were saying, apparently the Pope owns all of this until he either dies or resigns, and then that ownership gets transferred to his successor. And the secret archives reportedly has the largest collection of Catholic books, documents, and doctrine in the entire world, including letters from Lincoln and Mary Queen of Scots, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting. Well, and the way that I was looking at this is I'm like, okay, if there is all of this historical documentation, why can't the people access it? And why aren't other governments seizing it? Because we know governments love to do that, right? And so, like, they have all these policies at the Vatican that they've developed to really restrict access. to no earlier than 75 years after the end of the Pope's reign. But there have been a few exceptions. So in 2002, Pope John Paul II allowed scholars to access documents relating to the Holy See's relationship with the Nazis to try and like put an end to speculation on that, which I didn't even realize there was speculation about the Pope and the Nazis working together. Then in 2008, there was a controversial film called Angels and Demons. And apparently, this stirred up so much controversy that the Pope allowed a certain group of journalists access to dispute certain things surrounding the film. And then in 2018, Pope Francis opened documents concerning former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who was accused of molesting seminarians and having affairs with priests. So there is the most massive collection of historical documents in the world, and only the popes have, collected all of this during their reigns of terror, which is like a whole other episode we can do. And only the popes have had access to it ever since, unless it's like these few small exceptions. And like, that's just crazy to me. And someone commented on the TikTok video and they were like, well, that's not true. You can access the archives. All you need is an appointment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like a tour that shows a tiny portion under controlled supervision. Like they do allow certain scholars who are vetted and meet certain requirements to access a small part of the library. But that's it. And outside of those few exceptions that I just mentioned, I mean, there is a ton of stuff that no one has ever seen other than the Pope. And Tara, like we know, knowledge is power. So why are they hiding it from the world? And I mean, what I think could happen is like maybe it's conflicting with their telling of history. Maybe it conflicts with the Bible. Maybe, I don't know. Like, why would they hide all this knowledge from the people?
Well, I wouldn't doubt it conflicts with history. And you mentioned earlier about who did you say? Pope John Paul II allowed scholars to see some of the documents related to the Nazis.
Mhm.
Well, just a couple years ago, Pope Francis did the same thing, and he allowed access to documents in the secret archives relating to the Pope at the time, Pope Pius XII, and his connection to Hitler, because apparently there was a lot of scrutiny about him working with the Nazis. And there was all this controversy around the fact that the Pope was silent when the Jews were being persecuted by Hitler. So I guess he's let people look at these documents. And then back in 2019, Pope Francis changed the name of the archive. So it's not called the Secret Archive anymore. It's called the Vatican Apostolic Archive. And there's a former archbishop named Sergio Pagano, and he was the prefect of the archives for 45 years. And he wrote a book called Secretum. And he talks in the book about all these things he uncovered during his time there. And this book was just published a few months ago in February. And he talks about the importance of the financial relationship between the Vatican and the United States, and how that dates back to 1922, when the Vatican Secretary of State sent a telegram to his ambassador in Washington to ask for money from the United States, because after World War I, the papal treasury ran dry and they had no money and they needed to elect a new pope. So who gave the money? The United States, with donations from US churches, apparently. So a PBS article from back in February that was talking about the book release said, quote, Pagano suggests that Francis's 2019 decision to remove the word secret from the archive's name and rename it the Vatican Apostolic Archive was perhaps another financial nod to the wealthy United States Church, a rebranding to remove any negative connotations and thus encourage potential donations, primarily via the Treasures of History, a new United States-based foundation that supports the archive, end quote. So why am I bringing this up? Well, we have been like major deep diving into our own country's sordid history of corruption and discovering all these lies that we've been told our whole lives. And clearly, there's a strong relationship between the US and the Vatican. So it would not remotely surprise me if the truth in these secret documents contradicts the telling of history.
Oh, I 100% believe that. I think a lot of history isn't really history at all. It's what they made up. But again, it's like, why are we allowing this? And why aren't there various governments trying to take it over? Well, it turns out the Vatican has their own army, which I had no idea. And here's where it gets weird. So the army is actually the Swiss Guard, in Rome at the Vatican. So they have requirements. Number one, they must have Swiss citizenship and they must have military training with the Swiss Guard in Switzerland. They must be Catholic and they must be at least 5 foot, 8.5 inches tall, which I thought was interesting. So that brought me to the next question of like, okay, what's the connection between the Vatican and Switzerland? And why is Switzerland home to every organization surrounded in conspiracy and controversy? So let's just think about this. It's the home of CERN, where they have the Hadron Collider. It's the home of the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Red Cross, the World Health Organization, the WTO, and the list goes on and on. And people on our TikTok commented that it's all because of the Swiss bank and the fact that, the country itself has the highest nominal wealth per person than any other country. So it's like this group of elites that hold their money there. And it's never been in war. Despite being landlocked in the middle of Europe, it's never been engaged in the world wars that we've had, kind of like the Vatican. And it's also thought that the Vatican has amassed a massive fortune of gold. And this would make sense because if you think about it, they've been collecting artifacts for over 2,000 years. But the number that the Vatican actually reports on financial documents is that they have about $50 million worth of gold.
There's
Again,
no fucking way.
with
Like,
all those miles underground, how would you check it? Like, if you don't have access, like, how would you check it? So, if that's what they're reporting,
yeah, and they don't allow photography to take place in there either.
yep.
And they probably have one fucking portrait alone that's worth over $50 million.
Right. Yeah, some of the greatest works of art
Yeah.
are right there for everyone to see. So it's just crazy. And yeah, like I said, Switzerland is where the elites keep their money. So I think that there is some kind of connection, financially at least. But we know already from previous episodes that the elites visit every year. They go to Geneva, Switzerland, and they do the World Economic Forum Summit. And a lot of people also said that there is a page in the Bible that gives the coordinates of Switzerland as the seat of the devil. So I looked it up, and I think what they're referencing is that in the book of Revelations, chapter 2, verse 13, it reads, quote, I know thy works and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you where Satan dwelleth. Okay, so Saint Antipas, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Tara, was murdered under Emperor Nero in the Temple of Apollyon. Where is that? Geneva, Switzerland. And guess what? You're not going to freaking believe this, okay? CERN, where they have the particle collider, which we should not be messing with. Literally, they have the statue of Shiva, the destroyer of worlds. That site sits in the same exact spot where the Temple of Apollyon was, where supposedly that is the devil's seat. And
Oh, what a coincidence.
what a coincidence. And is it also a coincidence that CERN's logo is 666? Everyone go Google it. CERN's logo, it is three sixes that are all intertwined. Then you have the World Economic Forum, which everyone thinks is like the evil plot to take over the world, and like Klaus Schwab is the devil himself. And then you have the United Nations, which, I mean, good Lord, just look into them. That's a whole other rabbit hole. But, their headquarters is located right there in the same place where CERN is in the devil's seat. And the headquarters also of a company that's intertwined with the United Nations called Lucius, formerly known as Lucifer Publishing Company, which was started by these Luciferian occultists, Alice and Foster Bailey. That's a whole other rabbit hole. Also in Switzerland, there is this creepy ass ceremony that they do before the Hadron Collider starts up, where they do all of this weird, like Luciferian stuff. So why do I keep saying Lucifer, Luciferian? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the Vatican, right now, go look it up. They have a telescope that is named Lucifer. And this is like verifiable fact. It is named Lucifer. So it's at a Vatican owned observatory in Arizona on a sacred mountain, which is a whole conspiracy in itself because the native people say that it's a portal and it's sacred land. But the Vatican just came in and like took it over, which is this huge controversy for the native people who say that this is their sacred land. And it's run by the Jesuits. No one can get near the place. And it is a telescope that's so powerful that it can observe the most distant observable objects. And yes, it truly is actually named Lucifer, which is known as like the name for the devil in modern society. But they say, oh, no, no, no. It also means morning star. So, like, I'm sorry, Tara, don't you think it's a little suspicious that the head of the Catholic Church would choose the name Lucifer, knowing its reference to the devil in modern society? Like, why not just say morning star if that's what you're referring to?
I mean, is it really any more suspicious than the King of England recently getting his portrait painted in the theme and colors of Lucifer? Like, they're all putting the shit out there. And I'm sorry, why Arizona? Like, that's clearly a purposeful place that they
And it's known as a
appropriated.
portal. There's
Yeah.
there's a few portals throughout the world that people suggest are portals, and they've got their freaking telescopes there at all of them, and you can't access them. I mean, there are guards there. They will like literally take you down if you try to access it. It's crazy. But like the truth hiding in plain sight, right? Because it's that
Mhm.
law of karmic retribution that you have to put it out there. And so why not put it out there with all this Luciferian language? You're basically telling people what you're doing. And so it turns out that I didn't realize this, but I guess there's a very popular conspiracy theory that the Vatican is basically like the wolf in sheep's clothing. And like the devil himself is housed down in those secret archives, which I think is a little far fetched, but it is a conspiracy theory that's out there. And so there is this priest, Father Gabriel Amorth, who is very well known for conducting thousands of exorcisms. And he has publicly claimed that the devil was hiding somewhere within the Vatican.
I
Isn't
like,
that
okay.
crazy?
No, 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 no. This is the shit that freaks me out, okay? Like, I'm all good with ghost stories and horror movies, but when it comes to possession and the exorcism shit, like, this is when I tap out. Like, to this day, I still can't watch The Exorcist because it totally freaked me out as a kid. So, the fact that this priest who's conducted thousands of exorcisms is saying this, like, I'm sorry, but I don't doubt that it's possible.
Right? I get freaked out by exorcism movies as well. And like, so does my daughter. She loves scary movies, my teenager. But I played the exorcism of Emily Rose. We had to shut it off within the first 5 minutes. And I'm like, I feel like it's our intuition telling us, don't mess around with this stuff because
Yeah.
it's real. And so it does. It really creeps me out. And if you want to get really creeped out, Tara, go online and this is what you're going to type in. You're going to look up photos of the Vatican VI audience hall. Why the number six? Why? I mean, again, just like think about this shit, right? When you look at the view from the back of the room, I want everyone to just pause real quick and just look it up. Vatican VI audience hall. Google it, look up the image, it's out there. When you look at the view from the back of the room, you see a serpent's head. You see a serpent's head. It's like plain as day. It's not some abstract, it is a freaking serpent's head. And so then the statue behind where the Pope stands is very unsettling. I mean, I'm talking like the stuff of nightmares. And so the statue is called the Resurrection. And get this, it was meant to capture the anguish of the 20th century man living under the threat of nuclear war and portrays Jesus being resurrected from a nuclear crater. That's the literal description in Wikipedia. Okay, like that is why the statue was made. And this just happens to be the statue that is directly behind the Pope as he's speaking in audience hall 6 that is looks like a serpent. And you can see like they have two windows that look like eyes. They even have little things that look like fangs. The row like that separates the seating would be like the serpent's tongue. And then the entire walls and glass look like scales. Like it's freaking creepy.
I just looked it up while you were talking. That's totally fucking legit.
Yep. And then there's the Pope right in the center, right?
Wow. Yeah,
So
that is
here's the next thing that
creepy.
you can look up, okay? Go look up the resurrection statue that's in this audience hall and look at the photos for yourself because when you zoom in, you have Jesus, in the middle of it. And when you zoom in, the way they did his hair or whatever, his head looks like the head of a serpent. It looks like the freaking head of a snake. And it is the creepiest thing. And to have that in a church setting to me just seems satanic. It seems disrespectful. It seems wrong and it feels wrong. Like we're talking about this statue was meant to highlight feelings of anguish. And that is exactly what you feel when looking at it. It's the creepiest thing. And yeah,
Okay,
so
am I like looking at the right thing? Because not only that, but there's like all these skeletal bodies or something like coming
mhm.
out of the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's basically meant to be like a nuclear war. And it looks like demons, like surrounding Jesus
Yes.
that looks like a freaking serpent. Yeah,
Wow.
everyone needs to go look at the photo because it's like words can't describe how disturbing it is.
That is creepy as fuck.
Hmm. And
Oh
I
my
don't know
God.
what,
And he has like a serpent tail.
yeah, yeah, like
Wow.
legit. I mean, it's really creepy. And it's like, why? Why? You know what I mean? Like, why do that? Why name the telescope Lucifer? Why this connection to Switzerland that is Satan's seat in the Bible? I can't find the clip. I had a clip from Billy Carson. So if anyone really wants to go down the rabbit hole with this, look up Billy Carson. This guy is so knowledgeable. He's a scientist and a researcher of ancient civilizations. And he talks about people that he has interviewed that actually have access to the secret archives, and that the stuff that they have uncovered is very unsettling and throws into question everything. I mean, not just religion, but like our origins, everything. So he's a good one. I mean, we could do whole episodes on him, but Billy Carson, if you want to really like go down the rabbit hole.
Well, since you're bringing up like the creepy stuff, I want to point out what recently happened because the Vatican is making changes to their rules about supernatural phenomenon. And they just published a set of like 6 new possible conclusions that they want bishops to reach whenever there's some kind of alleged supernatural incident. And based on what I was reading, the reasons ranged from like saying an event is not supernatural at all to authorizing and promoting people to go ahead and like be devotional to whatever the phenomenon is, but they're not actually supposed to affirm that it's divine. So it sounded to me like they can encourage people to believe in supernatural phenomenon, but with these new rules, they can't make any public statements that say, yeah, it's authentic or supernatural, and they apparently can't have any like personal connection to it. But basically, the Vatican wants the Catholic Church to take a stricter and more cautious approach when it comes to determining like the truthfulness and credibility of events. Like, for example, a weeping statue or a bleeding portrait or like a divine apparition.
Which
And they're
aren't those
trying,
all in those exorcism movies? Like literally
yes.
all of, yeah,
Yes,
creepy.
they are. And they're doing this to try to like streamline the whole discernment process. And this came about a couple weeks ago. The Vatican did a media briefing, and the rules that they have in place right now, like were last updated in 1978. So this is like the new updates. And according to BBC News, basically the Vatican's recommending that when supernatural incidents are presented to the church, they need to be carefully assessed to make sure that they're not fake or an attempt to like make money. And the whole point is to avoid anything that can cause scandals or undermine the credibility of the church. And I guess these new rules are being attributed to the rise in reports of supernatural phenomenon on social media and, the how this is exacerbating disinformation and rumors that the Vatican thinks is attracting more attention and causing confusion. So they want bishops to basically quote prevent the spread of confused religious manifestations or the dissemination of any material pertaining to the alleged supernatural phenomenon to avoid fueling a sensationalistic climate.
Okay, you know what this makes me think of? A long time ago, I mean, this could have been a year, maybe more. On this podcast, I was telling you about this like leaked CIA plan, and it was either called Project Blue Book or Project Blue Bean because there's two
Mhm.
different projects. I forget which one this is. And I remember you laughed because it was so ridiculous, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is like totally conspiracy bullshit." But now, like, let's just go back to that real quick. So, what that whole project stated was that they were going to use these holographic, technologies to put stuff in the sky that look like UFOs, or now they're calling them UAPs, right? And it was basically going to get everyone to think that these things are real and to instill a bunch of fear and to get everyone in the world to come together under one new world religion. Since then, since we did that episode, they have officially changed the name UFO to UAP. So it basically went to unidentified flying object to unidentified aerial phenomena.
Mhm.
Um, and we've been seeing stuff in the sky. I mean, there's people reporting stuff left and right. There's now Congress members confirming this. There's the whole UAP disclosure event with Congress, whistleblowers coming forward about UAPs. And now we have the church updating their guidelines for supernatural phenomena. Like, this is literally following the playbook piece by piece. So where it seemed so ridiculous, I'm like, well, if it is ridiculous, everything's unfolding just as they said that Project Bluebeam would unfold. And then next thing you know, there's going to be some big event or something we all see in the sky that makes everyone a believer that there's like these aliens or whatever. And then we all like come together under one world religion, AKA one world government, one global power. I mean, it goes lockstep and key with all the Switzerland agendas of WHO and CERN. And I mean, I don't know. I cannot say that this is a coincidence. Like too many things are lining up with that conspiracy. So
Yeah. And meanwhile, they want to distract us with comedy because apparently Pope Francis is having a comedy show at the Vatican because on Saturday, he announced that on June 14th, the Vatican's going to be hosting a cultural event with comedians from around the world, and they're going to celebrate the beauty of human diversity. And guess who's going to be there, Stephanie? Whoopi Goldberg, Jimmy Fallon, Conan O'Brien, Chris Rock, and several other American comedians, along with like comedians from all across the world. So, is it me or is this just fucking bizarre?
okay, so basically, before the election, they're having a comedy event, which is really people that are extremely outspoken on the left that
Mhm.
are going to go and talk on a world stage at the Vatican. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, everyone let us know if you want us to dive further because I mean, this is literally just surface level. There are so many things with the Vatican that are very unsettling. Um, and the connection with Switzerland is undeniable. So, I would love to know everyone's thoughts on this. And you could follow us on TikTok if our account doesn't get banned again. Unapologetically outspoken, and I've been doing episodes on this, and I try to put the pictures so you can see what I'm talking about with like all the serpent stuff. It's really creepy. But yeah, I thought this would just be kind of a fun yet a little bit terrifying conspiracy to talk about. So hopefully that broke up your week a little bit, gave you something fun to talk about. And yeah, we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.